Okay, we are live right now. So today we are switching back to doing some PSLE science. This time it's interactions with the environment, which is short form for living things and how they are affecting the environment around them. So okay, let's just get the thing started and begin with the brief overview of the chapter itself. So it's about what are the factors that affect the survival of living things, what is the energy pathway of living things, which is linked back to what we previously learned about energy, as well as specific terms involving living things interacting with what is the organism, population, habitat, and a community. Alright, so okay, so let's do the pre-test and see how much I can remember about this. And maybe we can all learn something from it together. Okay, let's just begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully my video is clear. Okay. 2, 3. Okay, let's start. Temperature affects the survival of an organism. True, definitely it's true, right? Because you heard of people freezing to death, you heard of people getting heat stroke and dying, right? So it's definitely true. Second, the intensity of light does not affect the survival of an organism. False, again, is indirect, especially for plants, you know that, right? Organisms depend on food to stay alive. It's true. Yeah. The grass is the main energy source for living things. False. I don't think humans really eat that much grass though. I also think there are a lot of animals that don't take grass, but we'll see. Food chains are food webs. I don't think these are the same thing, but we have to see. Animals are producers. What do we produce? We don't produce anything. We just consume, so it's false. So, based on that same logic, right? Plants are not consumers, they are producers, so it's false. Double false here. Okay, a prey is eaten by a predator. Not correct, it's the other way around. Oh no, sorry. A prey is eaten by a predator. Correct. True. Sorry about that. 9. The ocean is an example of a habitat. Yes, it is. An organism is any living thing. I think so. And by the way, I will upload this video on demand onto my secondary YouTube channel. It's in the overlay below. It's AGN edutainment on YouTube. That's where you can find all the voice video on demand afterwards. Okay, so let me just check if I was correct here. True. False. True. False. Yep. 10 out of 10, no problems here. Okay, so we now take a look at what are the factors that affect the survival of living things. Just to recap. Okay, living things grow we know that living things need air, water, and food to stay alive. I think that was taught in an earlier part. Living things will grow and reproduce when the environmental conditions are favorable, correct? Factors in the environment that affect the survival include temperature. Yeah, correct. Amount of light, definitely, especially if you are a plant where you need to make food using photosynthesis, and amount of water. So what the diagrams show here are basically examples of organisms, living things that have adapted in high temperature, low temperature, high light, low light, these kind of things, how they adapt to survive. All living things need food to survive. Competition for food between different living things. And if their surrounding conditions are unfavorable, they will move to other places to survive better. If it's not possible, become endangered or even extinct, they will try to adapt and survive in the environment, as I have discussed a little bit earlier. Yeah. Is the environment favorable for these animals? Explain your answer. Yes, reproduction is favorable. Food, warmth, and light, yes. snails. This one is not favorable as it's trying hard. Actually, I think this is a bit of a judge your own judgment situation. It could be said that the snail is actually favorable because maybe it found a way to adapt and camouflage itself within the leaves. That is indeed possible. Maybe there's also smaller organisms inside leaves where there is food, so pictures don't tell the story. So maybe I'm making too complicated stuff for this level of primary 6 science. You tell me if it's anything different. So what are the factors that affect the survival of these animals? Food, water, light. Remember, food, water, air is not necessary because we can assume that actually air present in these environments. It's just water, light, and temperature as well, but they didn't mention it over here. So we can start with practice 4.1. Okay. 4.1, 1, 2, and 3. An animal is more likely to be able to survive in an environment with oxygen, water, and food. Obviously, you need all these 3 things to survive in the long term. Oxygen, without oxygen, you cannot survive for more than a few minutes. If you have oxygen plus water, you can survive for maybe a few days. But if you really want to survive long term, you need to have food. Okay, 2. When the fish is put on land, it cannot survive. So, if you see every time, when we go to the fishmonger before, they keep live fish. When they get the fish they want with you, then you see the fish will probably struggle for a few moments before it actually dies, and then you can cook it and eat it. So why is that the case? Too bright on the land. Too bright on the land. Not sure what is the difference in brightness between the sea and the land, so not likely. Number 2, it cannot take in oxygen. Yeah, that's the most likely scenario. You know that fish have evolved to take in oxygen inside the water and not in the land itself. Number 3, it cannot find food. No, usually organisms, if they are deprived of food, they won't show signs of distress for at least a few days. Okay, number 4, it cannot move. Obviously not. You can see that every time you fish out the fish from the water, then it will struggle for quite some time. So most likely answer will be 2. Cannot take in oxygen. 3. What of the following is not affected by the presence of light? So again, okay, so this question is a bit ambiguous here. You got 4 options. Bat. What are they talking about by bat? Are they talking about the animal, or are they talking about baseball bat? But then again, you realize that there is an option that sounds a bit more safe, the door. So you choose number 4. Door is a non-living thing, and so it will not be affected by the presence of light. But that could be even more debatable if you think that if you realize that what if there is a door made that is sensitive to light? Then of course then the question gets a little bit dicey, but in this case this is primary 6 science and we don't overcomplicate things over here. But this is really like a poor choice of answer because it can be quite because you don't know whether you're talking about the animal here or the baseball bat here. But since you have the option for a door, then okay, then it's pretty much resolved. Okay, so now let's go to section B. A tree is home to some birds. State what the tree provides for the birds to remain alive. The tree provides food. What else could it be? Let me think. Food and shelter for the birds. What other things could the tree provide for these birds? What could it be? I wonder. Some birds then stay up the tree provide what birds to remain alive. Okay, I am not so sure about it. We will have to see afterwards. Okay, now let's look for question 5. Plant X was introduced into a garden. This resulted in the increase of animals such as the snails and birds living there. This is because the snails and birds feed on plant X. Okay. What would happen to the other plants that the snails and birds used to feed on before plant X was introduced into the garden? Okay, so increase in animals such as snails and birds. The number, logically speaking, if they're all flocking to plant X, that means that fewer snails and birds will be clinging onto the existing plant. So the number of snails and birds feeding on the other plants will decrease. Well, how do you think this would affect the other animals that feed on the snails and birds? Okay, so the other animals that feed on the snails and birds will come to plant X to feed on these snails. I could actually write it a bit more complicated to make it not so lengthy, but this is primary 6 science we are talking about, so we also have to make it digestible for people to write. Let's see. 424. Yeah, correct. Food and shelter, yes, correct. Okay, I will just write down the correct answer here. Other plants would increase in number as they were not eaten as much. But this is technically correct, but maybe not. I don't know how strict the marker would be, but this doesn't seem to be the most accurate answer. So let's take like 5B. So this one is definitely probably not correct, but let's write down the correct answer here. Is that the number of other animals would increase as more sources of food in the environment now exists since plant X was introduced. Number of other animals would increase. Okay. So now let's take a look at section 4.2. What is the energy pathway of living things? Okay, it's from the sun, it goes to the plants. And right, so here, let me just explain this part. So plant eaters, we call them herbivores. these animal eaters, we call them carnivores. And animals that eat both plants and other animals are omnivores. That also includes us humans. So from the sun to the plants to animals. What are producers and consumers? Plants are producers that make their own food because of photosynthesis. Consumers, we all depend on plants for food and we don't actually produce anything for... In other words, we don't make our own food for other people to really rely on as animals. So plant eaters are the primary consumers, while animal eaters and plant and animal eaters can be the secondary or tertiary consumers. So yeah, that's usually because these primary consumers are usually at the lower end of the food chain, whereas the animal eaters and plant animal eaters are usually at the higher end of the food chain. What are prey and predators? Prey is an animal hunted and killed by a predator for food. And a predator is an animal that eats other animals by hunting and killing them. But you can also note that a predator can also be prey to another animal and a prey can also be a predator by itself. So prey can be predators and predators can be preys. So just to let you know. Right, that's an iconic moment. I think I should keep it. What are food chains and food webs? Okay. The organisms living in the same environment have a food relationship and are interdependent on one another. So that's how the food chain works, and that also explains why predators can be preys and preys can be predators. So food chains show how energy is transferred from producers to consumers, and many food chains are interconnected to form a food web. So again, this example of the Adelie penguin is an example of a prey that can be a predator and a predator that can be a prey. Because it's in the middle of the food chain, right? So it's a predator because it's on krill, and it's prey because it can be eaten by the killer whale. So you know. Okay, the following shows the food chain, and where does the energy in the food chain come from? The sun. The sun is the origin of all the energy from the food chain. What is the producer? It's always the plant. The plant is always the producer, so it's the grass. What is the primary consumer? It's always going to be a plant-eating species or herbivore, so it's the grasshopper. So name the consumer that depends on plants indirectly for food. The mouse and owl. Which animal is a predator and also a prey? Again, this is what I was talking about. Preys can be predators and predators can be preys. So it's the mouse. The meat in between two animals. Okay. Now let's take a look at practice 4.2. Which of the following is not a producer? In other words, which of the following is not a plant? Water lily is a plant. Mushroom is a fungi. But I think a mushroom does create its own food. No. Mushroom is, we have grass, which is a plant. It produces its own food. Water lily is a plant also. Balsam plant is also a plant. But mushrooms are not plants. They are fungi. And I don't think fungi can make their own food. So it will be number 3. Which one is, in other words, which of these is not a plant? That is what they want you to find out. Okay, question 2. What does a food chain show? The food relationship between organisms? Yes. The transfer of... So A and B are both correct. Number of organisms in an environment? Yeah. Sorry about that. This number 4. Which of the following is not a consumer? In other words, which of the following is a producer and which is a plant? The answer is A. A is definitely a producer. Tadpole is a consumer, so it strike out. Dragonfly is a consumer, so it strike out. Cornweed is a type of aquatic plant, so it's A and D. Which of the following is a producer and in turn it's a plant, so it's A and D. Okay. Study the diagram below, so we see another example of a food chain. Or A. Beside the bird, which are the two animals are secondary consumers? So secondary consumers are always the animals that are at the middle, right smack in the middle between other animals in the food chain. So we can see there are two secondary consumers, which is the bird and the frog. The bird and the frog. Secondary consumers get their energy indirectly from plants. In the case of the bird and the frog, it is through the insect. Write two chains based on the diagram. Okay, we can see that there are at least 1, 2, 3. So we got quite a lot of multiple ones to choose from this food web. So we can I'll just write all the numbers, the possible combinations below, since we have the time to do so. So let's do it first. Number 1, plant is to mouse, is to weasel. It always starts from the producer, which is always going to be a plant. Number 2, plant is to bird, is to fox. Oh sorry, mouse is to weasel, is to fox. Yeah, sorry about that, I forgot that. Plant, bird, fox, yeah. So usually it's always an apex predator that is the end of the food chain, and it's always the plant that is the beginning of the food chain. Right. Number 3, plant is to insect, is to bird, is to fox. Plant is to insect, is to frog, is to fox. Yeah. Okay, now let's check whether or not my answers are correct. Okay, 3, 1, 2. Let's see what I wrong with question 2. Question 2 is only A only, the food relationship. Food change and food web, not the transfer of energy. Let me just check again. Transfer of energy. A food chain shows how energy is transferred from producers to consumers. Okay, fair enough. Then I may have misremembered. So B is not the answer here. So only can be A. So I misremembered this section. It's not just between consumers, but also between producers and consumers. So I made a mistake here, and I apologize for that. Okay, so sections. Okay, frog and we. It says the bird. Wait, secondary consumers. Oh, I made a mistake. So yeah, so only will get I didn't read the question carefully enough. Not just any two animals, also it could be the weasel. Yeah, correct. So secondary consumers get their food indirectly to the insect. as a primary consumer. Yeah. Insect or mouse. Yeah, correct. So write two food chains based on diagram. Let's see how many there are. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of them. Okay, we have the plant bird fox, correct? We also have the, wait a minute, plant, mouse, weasel and fox, yeah. Plant, insect, bird, fox. Correct, so there are a total of 4 food chains, but we have written all that we can technically find, which is good. What's in the chat box? Nothing else, okay. Right, so let's take a look at 4.3 now. What are the specific terms involving living things interacting with one another and the environment? All living things are organisms. Plants, animals, fungi, and bacteria are organisms. A population is the adults and young of the same species. Organisms of the same species interact together and reproduce. A habitat is where living things live and breed, and the environment is a favorable one within this habitat. Pond, garden, these can all be habitats. A community is made of different species of plants and animals living together within the same habitat. What is the common name for a favorable environment? It's a habitat. Adult penguins and young crab. What is the specific group or population of penguins? Describe the environment that penguins live in. State 2 organisms that may make up a community in the environment that... Okay, not every penguin lives in this kind of stereotypical environment. There are a few penguins such as the fairy penguin that live closer to coast. They are not Arctic. They live in burrows near there. So this is only a very generalized idea of what penguins live in. Not all penguins live in this way. There are some penguins such as the fairy penguin that actually lives near the coast, and their young all are habitat within those burrows, in some burrows near the coast, and it's always the adults who will go out and fish and then come back quietly when the sun has set. So just for your information only. Okay. Now practice 4.3. Okay, practice 4.3. So this shall not be a very long stream, which will be ending in less than an hour's time. Okay, 1 and 2. Let's just make it a bit bigger. 1 and 2. Which of the following is not a habitat? Tree, yes, trees can be habitats for very small creatures like birds and insects. Pool and ocean definitely is a habitat. Tree, a desert can also be a habitat. Oxygen, no, it's not a habitat. It's a critical component in helping living things live. No oxygen is the no life for beyond a few minutes. So it's number 4. It's not a habitat. Number 2, which of the following is not a population? Coconut trees at the beach. Yeah, I didn't fall out of a coconut tree just yet, you know. Number 2, frogs and tadpoles in a pond. No, there are 2 different species, so definitely 2 is a likely candidate. Number 3, but if you have the time, always read through the range of answers that they give you, so you can eliminate those that don't really belong. 3, a herd of elephants moving together. Same species, okay. Number 4, several different species of birds flying together. What is the population again? It's either 2 or 4. Let me take a look. What's population? Same species together. So it's either 2 or 4. I think the closest answer is probably 4. Several different species. Because frogs and tadpoles, they are clearly separated as such. So, here 3. Name the habitat shown. Ocean habitats. Ocean habitat. 3B, state one population. Population of clownfish. Yeah, the fish they see in the illustration is clownfish, or the Nemo fish as people like to call it popularly. Okay, 3C. Give one way by which organisms in the population interact with one another. Okay. They interact with one another through reproduction. Reproduction as in the males and females, they mate and then they produce young of the same species within a certain population. How do the animals in a habitat make up a community? Strange noise going on outside. They make up a community by living, let me just check again, living together in the same habitat as different populations or species. Keywords. The following are some organisms that live together in a habitat. Bird 1, bird 2, bat, squirrel, orangutan, and fern. I would say the habitat would be a tree-based habitat, because all these organisms, they seem to be able to thrive just on this tree itself. So let's say it's a tree-based habitat. Describe one way by which different species interact with each other. Through a predator-prey relationship. Okay, so let's see how much correct am I. Four, yeah, correct. Frogs and tadpoles are in the pond, so these are two distinct populations, correct? So my logic was correct. Question 3. Ocean habitat, yes. Population of clownfish, yes. Organisms in a population interact with one another. Wait. Okay, so yeah, so population of clownfish, yes. Okay, this question is again a bit confusing. Asking about, is one way by which organisms in a population interact with one another, does it mean within the population itself, since population is defined as adults and young of the same species, or are they talking about population to population interaction between different species? Because the answer key seems to suggest that it's between different species, but the way the question is worded seems to suggest within the same population itself. So this one is, I don't know, it's not correct based on the answer key. The suggested answer key says forests provide food and shelter for the clownfish. So again, 3C is really confusing in 4.3 because I can't tell whether or not it's within the population itself. In that case, it could be through reproduction, or is it between two populations of different species. Okay, never mind. 3D. How do the animals in the habitat make up a community? Living together, correct? Correct. The same habitat as each other, correct. If tree-based habitat, yes. Although they say single tree habitat, but this is close enough. 4B. Okay, the suggested answer key here is birds, bats, squirrels get their food from the tree or burn. Yeah. Okay. Now the last section, which is the second last section, application type questions. How many MCQs do we have? We only have 2 MCQs. Okay. Diagram below shows a pond habitat. How many populations of consumers are there in this habitat? Okay, let's see here a bit close up. So one, we have this and this, whatever that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 populations of consumers in the same species. So it's 3, 5. The graph below shows the changes in the population of animal X in habitat Y during a particular period of time. So you see here it increases and then it then falls before recovering ever so slightly. No, we cannot be sure about that. So 1 is eliminated. 2. No, not correct. 4 is not correct. After points I know, if it was favorable, then it would have increased, not decreased. So 3 seems to be the most likely reason. And if the predator itself, it doesn't have its own predators within the habitat, then it will quickly, if there's no competition, right, it will then basically drive its own prey down to very low levels. And that's what happens a lot when okay, let me just give you an example. Sometimes the human populations, they end up introducing animals foreign to the habitats that basically, okay, let me just try to explain this in simple words. What is happening in question 2? What this example is really about. It's about how sometimes, usually by human action, there are animals who are being introduced into habitats that they are not native to, and they don't have any viable predators that can target them. So what happens is that without competition, they quickly decimate many of the local animals, the local animal populations within the habitat itself, and then this becomes a very big problem for the survival of the food webs and the food chains over there. Then they become an invasive species, so to speak, and this has happened many times in world history. And that's why you see some countries such as Australia, they are very, very stringent about you bringing in plants and animal matter, because they have seen enough of non-native animals being introduced into Australia and then causing havoc on the local habitat itself. True story. So remember the example I talked about, the fairy penguins in Australia, right? Fairy penguins, right? So these fairy penguins, they live in Australia. There's a habitat of them at Port Phillip Island, about 100 kilometers from Melbourne, the capital city of Victoria State. And once upon a time, there were a lot of the introduction of foxes that were not native to the population. It nearly decimated the fairy penguin population in Phillip Island until the humans had come in and manually take care of the foxes themselves to let the population of fairy penguins recover. So this is one example of what question 2 is talking about. Okay, enough of the supplementary talk. Let's start with the next few questions. Study the diagram of animals below. Which among the animals shown is /are plant eaters? So plant eaters, animal eaters, or plant and animal eaters. Okay, to make it clear, we will just divide it into a table this time round. Plant eaters, animal eaters, plants and animal eaters. Okay. First thing we can see Q, zebra. Zebra is this one relies on your general knowledge, so be aware of that. Q, zebra. T is a rabbit. This is not gonna be bad. P is a lion. R is a bear. U is a weasel. And okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the last one we have is the fish. Are fish plant eaters or animal eaters? I think they are both. So fish, because fish also feed on micro animals such as krill and all that, right? But they also can eat on plants such as algae. So that's my best guess. We'll see what the answer key has to say. 3B. What are two animals that are primary consumers? Q and T. The zebra and the rabbit. What are secondary consumers? P and R. Lion and bear. 4. Study the diagram below that shows the relationship between the 3 most important factors that determine the survival of organisms. Okay. An increased level of light may decrease the level of X, and the increased temperature. State the relationship between light temperature in an environment. I've got to think a little bit. So both increase. Okay, 4A. An increase in the amount of light, because increased temperature both increase level, because there's the implication that increased amount of light will increase the amount of temperature, increase the temperature, and then they both lead to the decrease in the level of X. So this is how I write it. An increase in the amount of light will lead to what's the difference of inversely? What is the opposite of the word inversely? Increase in temperature and vice versa. Corresponding increase and vice versa. What could X most probably be? Okay, what are the things that... Let me just go back and see what could be the answer here. I think it will be the amount, the level of water based on what they have hinted in the previous pages. It will be the level of water within the environment. Higher light levels and higher temperatures increase the rate of water evaporation into water vapor. So that's the best way I can describe it. Let's see if I'm right later. Okay, we are at the end of this application-based section, so let's take a look. I think I misread section again. Here, populations of consume. Okay, so I misread because I thought you were asking what is the number of populations in those habitats. So again, I made too many mistakes this time around. You need to read through the questions very carefully. Consumers, yeah. Which ones are the consumers? So that means that you eliminate the plants themselves, and that leaves you with three of them, yeah. So the correct answer would be 2. But otherwise 3 correct. Right. Take a look at question 3 itself. Yeah. Zebra rabbit correct. P and U. So, okay, so I will just put here the correct answers. Yeah, then this is not. I don't know what U is, but I think it's a weasel, but I am not so sure. UTPR. U can also be a secondary producer as well. Okay. Yeah. Right, the level of water within the environment. Water is also a physical characteristic of the environment. Yeah. Alright, so now we start to do journal 1. Using the words and phrases provided, to draw a concept map to show the interactions of organisms within the environment itself. Okay. Let's begin. Adjust seat position. Sorry. Using the words or phrases provided, draw a concept map to show the interactions of organisms within the environment. Okay. What we have here are, let's just start with environment. Environment. And we have is affected by physical characteristics, which include temperature, light, and water. Okay, temperature, light, and water. Okay, so the next is this part. producers, make food consumed by consumers. Are plants, are other organisms. I am a bit lost over here, so we'll see what the actual journal suggest answer is like. Okay, journal 2. Journal 2. So, okay. Plants are producers. Animals are consumers. They are both organisms. Populations form a community. Organisms of the same species form a... Okay, now let's see what the answer key is like. Right, physical characteristics, temperature, light, and water. Okay, it's not a two-way diagram. So this is how it actually looks like. Let me just draw the diagram again to show how it should be like. Okay, let's just redraw it. Of course, yeah, the diagram is a lot clearer this way. Environment is affected by physical characteristics, food availability, presence of other organisms, which includes producers and consumers. Light, water, temperature. So my one is the inverse of this journal, the suggested answer key, but it's still valid. They are both organisms, population. Yeah, so mine is also should be correct as well, because it's the inverse, the reverse of the suggested answer key. Alright, so let's take a look at science in real life as the last section, and we are done for today. Man-made environments. So technology has enabled mankind to basically circumvent some of the habitat limitations. So that's how you can see penguins and until recently polar bears living in zoos in tropical countries like Singapore. So what we do is that we spend a lot to make artificial environments with very cold temperatures for penguins and polar bears to survive. But in the case of the polar bears, we don't see any more polar bears anymore since like 2018, when they stopped having polar bears because of cost and concerns over whether or not it was ethically viable to keep them in Singapore. Also, maintaining and caring for animals, however costly, as these require a lot of resources, including electricity. So some people think that these artificial environments can help to ensure the continuity of these animals, hence preserving the biodiversity. It is a good long-term solution, and what do you suggest? I think the fundamental problem is that humankind are contributing too much to global warming. So if you want to ensure the continuity to cut down on global warming in the first place, right? So this is just a catch-up solution, right? Just like catch-up that doesn't do a long-term solution, as we see in the case of polar bears in Singapore, right? Eventually, cost and ethical concerns will make this kind of artificial environment very hard to maintain in the long term. And that's all I have to say for this. Today's stream was a little bit scuffed. I apologize for that. So I'll see you soon tomorrow, maybe about 7 PM Singapore time for the gaming stream. I think I'm probably going back to SimCity 4. See you then. Goodbye.